Hey everybody, welcome back to At Home, my video series here on YouTube where I get a chance to talk to folks at Cisco and out of Cisco about sort of what life is like now that we're all at home so much more than normal. And today I'm really lucky to be joined by a friend and mentor of mine here at Cisco, Cindy Goodwin-Sak. So Cindy, how's it going?
It's going great, Jeff. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm actually going to own it. I'm going to stop saying that, all things considered doing good because I'm actually doing pretty good. How about you?
You know what? The last couple days, I'm doing pretty good. so
Oh, what's going on the
I,
last couple of days?
uh, I think we all felt the pressure for a long time, and I feel like I finally have gotten into a rhythm where we can manage the pressures of what's going on outside business, inside business with family. I feel like it's sort of all just sort of snapped into place for me. It's been
That's
great.
awesome. That's awesome. I love, by the way, I don't know if you've watched any of the episodes, but I love that you use the word rhythm. It's been kind of a theme in a lot of the shows or these episodes that I've done. I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Hidden Brain by NPR a few months ago, and they had a guest on, or Shankar had a guest on where he talked about he doesn't like the metaphor of work-life balance because it's sort of like artificially implies that somehow you can find a balance, like and everyone thinks about it daily, like 2 hours of this and then 2 hours of that, and it's just not realistic. So he was suggesting the idea of a rhythm, so almost like a sheet of music, like over the course of a week or 2 weeks, you're going to have highs and lows in each thing, but at the end of it, you have sort of a harmony, like you have music that sounds good. And I thought that was I'm glad you said that because I found that really interesting. I've been trying to like think about that for myself. Um,
I'm
it's something I
actually
good.
I'm actually working on a blog right now about balance. What's balance? And it's
Mhm.
exactly that point, right? There isn't people to seem to want to keep score, personal life, work life,
Yes.
and they have to like I have to have four here and four here, and it doesn't work that way. And so you're right. We're really scheduled, and I live by my schedule. Everything,
Mhm.
my calendar is everything to me, and that's how I create. I don't want to call it balance, but harmony in my life, and it's how I can dissect where I'm spending my time. Um, but what I noticed over this last couple of months is that it's the interruption of my schedule. So when my kids come in and say, "Mom, I need help with my homework," and I'm like, "Wait, that's not part of how this works." Right? And learning French, that wasn't part of it. And
Oh
so
wow.
um, coming to terms with, okay, I'm going to have a schedule, and that has worked for me for years, like very deliberate with where I spend all my energy. And now I have to come to terms with being a bit more interrupt driven and less deliberate, and how I find not balance, but we'll call it harmony. We'll call it harmony because
That
it's not
works. I
balance.
like it. It
Yeah,
totally is a balance.
yeah.
It is. I like that word harmony too. It's so interesting. I was talking to another person yesterday, and she had a very similar thing to say the way you did. She and I have talked before about my wife and I have created like this. We came up with the term like sacred time. So like we both block off
Mhm,
time. I have on my work calendar, I have, or my Cisco calendar, I have 3 hours a day that are blocked off where I have to leave. So we share an office here. So she sits like
mhm,
I'm touching a monitor. She sits like 8 inches behind that monitor. So
mhm,
we're in here all the time. She runs her own marketing business. And so there's like 3 hours a day guaranteed where I have to leave the room. I'm with my son and she's in here, door closed, getting work done. It's just, we have to do that. At least that
mhm.
works for us. And the person I talked to yesterday, her comment to me was she actually heard that and a few other people. She's like, we really tried. Her and her husband really tried that. She's like, it never worked. We couldn't the dynamic nature of how they behave just didn't work for them. And so they're like, you know what? We're just taking this every single day, one day at a time. And if interruptions from the kids happen or something else comes up or we want to take a walk, we're just going to do that. And we're not going to worry about, am I finding a rhythm today or a balance today in any way? We're just going to go with whatever happens. I'm like, it's so interesting to hear that because it's very clear. And that's kind of why I started this, that everybody has to handle these things differently for sure.
Mhm. Ab Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a learning experience. And
I
now I
bet.
wonder, what will it be like to go back, or will we go back? Like,
I don't think
we don't know.
I don't know. I don't know that anybody can. I mean,
Mhm.
it's an interesting thought experiment to go through. Like, how many people who work in businesses like ours or others, like, are going to be excited to just jump straight back into an office culture again?
Right, right. I've worked from home for years and years. So ever since moved into a global role, there wasn't a lot of value for me going into the office because I didn't have any team members in the office. So I've worked from home for a long, or airports, right, for a
Mhm.
long time.
Yeah.
So, I can tell you from our family, my husband also works from home. Um, for our family, the kids just want to go back to school. That's the only thing. Like normalcy for us, even if we don't travel again for a while, normalcy will be the kids going back to school. So I think that's the one weight that's sitting on our family right now is the kids miss their friends and the social, like
Mhm.
that's what you do when you're a kid is you socialize,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah, I totally understand. My 4.5-year-old, hasn't been asking about school as much lately, but we have been noticing it in other little things like this. He really feeds off of structure, and he's not super good with transition. And so the Montessori school he's in helps him with that. But when we're at home, we're really trying. It's just so tough because the two of us both have connected lives with work, and we're really trying to even pull ourselves away from that more and more to realize I can't be so connected all the time if I want to give him the attention and the time that he actually needs. He's got no homework. He just wants to be a 4.5-year-old, which is
absolutely.
a different sort of thing altogether.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
I'm curious. It's something I've asked a few people that I've talked to. If you would not, because I don't really want to focus so much on, not that we have been talking about negative, but I don't like to focus too much on the downsides of being at home all the time. What I would love to know is, I'm assuming there's some things that you and your husband or you in general have found or done since this crisis started while at home to sort of create that harmony for yourself. If you could pick one of those things that has had the most impact, what would it be?
Um, we always did deliberate family time before, but Or, I think we're even more deliberate about it now. It's been a phenomenal experience. Having said that, as as we spend more time together as a family, us as parents are the shininess is wearing off, right? So the kids are like they're not as interested, but the deliberate focus on we're going to play a board game tonight, and or we're going to play cards, or and then my husband and I have also started taking walks together because I've decided, because I'm sitting way more than I ever did before, I'm going to try to get 15,000 steps a day, which you have to like really, really want. Like,
Yes.
so, so we've been taking more walks together. When the kids are decided that the shiny is worn off at the parents go for a walk. And that's just been a really wonderful experience and something that we never slowed down to take the time to do.
Mhm. I'm so glad to hear you say that because I think it gets to something that a lot of people I've been talking to or that I work with on a daily basis haven't quite got themselves to yet, which is giving themselves permission to do things like that. Especially, I mean, and I don't just mean at the end of the business day, whatever that artificial term is. It's giving yourself permission to do those things throughout the course of a day to get a break or a mental break from whatever you're doing because you realize, so you've probably done it, you realize so much sitting at this desk or standing at the desk, whatever. All if you do it all day long, you will do it all day long. Like it's
Mhm.
easy to work that 16-hour day, or I don't even want to say work it, to stand in front of a screen for 16 hours or whatever the time is. You may not be productive, but you're going to be busy. You'll do
Yeah,
things, but you may not be getting a lot done necessarily, but you feel obligated that, well, I'm not in the office, so I've got to be here, right? And I think
right.
so many people are just not giving themselves permission yet to just like, look, it's okay to just, hit the keystroke in your computer to lock the screen and just
Go walk
take a
away.
breath and just walk
Yes.
away for a few minutes.
Yeah. We one of the things that I noticed, and everybody was talking about becoming so much busier, and I was trying to understand that too. Everybody's so much busier, and their calendars are more full. And so I actually did. I had help, but I did an analysis of my calendar, and because the my hypothesis was I used to travel, so I had time on airplanes,
Mhm.
I had time in customer meetings. I was all this time that I was not available. What happened to that time?
So true.
And so what I learned was, it got filled with lots of one-on-one meetings. So,
Mhm.
lots of one-on-one meetings, lots of regular meetings, and I'm blocking off 2 hours a day. We had to go a couple weeks ahead to find the time. Blocking off 2 hours a day for just strategic time, thinking time, and actually, I've always had blocks built into my calendar to protect my personal time, but I had never protected my work time before, and that's a new thing for me, and that I realized that unless so I've always defended my personal time. I figured that out early. But if I didn't defend my work time, then other people would find ways to get me to do what their work rather
Mhm.
than allowing me to do my work. So that's been a really insightful thing for me that's going to continue. That will surely continue.
I'm so glad you brought that up. The term I'd heard used to describe that is like deep work, but I mean,
Yes.
whatever term you want to use to describe it, it's basically that chunk of time to focus on, to like either rat hole yourself on one thing that you've just been wanting to let your brain go off on for a while, or a project, or catch up on a bunch of tasks you haven't done. You like literally work to actually do
Yes.
the job as opposed to sit in meetings. Because as much as people want to think that meetings is part of your job, it might be a component of what you do every day. But if all you do is sit in meetings, you don't get
Yeah.
anything productive actually completed. Um, I'm so happy you said that for a lot of reasons. One of the ones I'm still personally trying to figure out is I have deep work sort of blocks blocked on my calendar, and I finally figured out the trick that if I mark them private on my Outlook calendar, people don't artificially see the title and go and kind of imply their own priority on it, and so they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, I have to stop and ask a question of can I work with you?" And then it gives me a chance to say yes, yes, I will totally meet with you tomorrow, or
Right.
and trying to do that. But I guess my question for you is, in blocking off 2 hours a day, how have you found other people coming to you saying, "Oh, but we really, Cindy, we really have this priority. We need to work on together for the business we're running." How do you find yourself being able to sort of, I don't want to say defend, but like still be able to hold on to that and say, "No, this is important time, and this is how this has to be."
So, I have a list of my strategic priorities. What's going to move Cindy forward? What's going to move the team forward? And any request that bumps up against my strategic priorities, if it's not there, if it doesn't drive one of those forward, it's a prioritization decision, and I have to say no, because the only time I'm going to get my strategic priorities done and actually meaningfully do something positive to move my whole team forward is in that time. And so it's a very deliberate prioritization mechanism, but you have to be clear what your priorities are. And I had mentioned to you before we started chatting.
Mhm.
I'm working on my dissertation. So what I found was happening before this whole thing, and when I was traveling, I would do my strategic work on airplanes. I would do my strategic work on the weekends. And what has happened in this is my calendar filled up with meetings, and I started doing my strategic work on the weekends, which is the same time that I have to do my homework. And right, and there was a massive conflict. And so now it is, I have no choice. And I don't recommend that you move your strategic work to the weekend. You got to know exactly what your priorities are, and it is a basic prioritization exercise. Is this going to move my strategic priorities forward? And if it's not, you have to move it or say no.
I like that. You know, I think it's a tough thing because there's an inherent that I've noticed at least that people don't typically think about is there's an inherent conflict or sort of conflict handling that you have to deal with when you're doing what you're describing, which is
Mhm.
other people are going to come to you and say, it could be your boss, it could be your subordinates, it could be anybody you work with coming to you saying, "No, but we have to do this. This is a priority. Like, don't push back on me. I need this thing done." And so there's conflict handling you have to deal with to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people probably shy away from owning their schedule in that way because they have to deal with that conflict resolution piece of it as part of it. But to your point, it's super important because if you don't do that, you're going to it's going to downward spiral. It will
Oh yeah.
not simply just be a, well, this week we'll do this and next week it'll be fine again. If you allow that to happen, it will just become part of who you are, and you'll allow that to always
Mhm.
happen. I look back at my entire career and every company I've worked for, I've lived off. I was in IT operations. It was always based off of like a ticketing system of some kind. And so your work came through that way. And if you didn't block off time, you would just have to deal with emails coming through, and you're just churning this stuff through, but are you really getting anything done? You're checking boxes, but I don't know if you're actually being productive in any way.
Right. And part of the I'm terrible at saying no, just to be clear. I'm not good at it. And so I practice. Literally, I have a mental list. I have had physical lists before. In various scenarios, how do you say no in the nicest, most politically acceptable way? Right. And I highly recommend having a no list. Like, and this is terrible. People ask me for mentoring all the time. And actually, so I I was having such a tough time saying no. I literally wrote a blog series so I could say, "I'm really sorry I don't have time to mentor you right now, but I'll put you to my blog." So, right.
Yeah.
So, but it's a way for me to cope with saying no. But I highly recommend writing it down and practicing.
You know what? Whatever tool works for you is the thing to go with. I've said that a few times to people. I've kind of coached is, and I actually wrote or did a video on this recently, was about the whole idea of the tool that you use. I was talking about like task management, but it was the idea of a tool is like the tool that you use is super important, and it's also not important at all, because it's super important that you have some sort of tool to take the process you want to build for yourself and put that in play, like whatever it is. But the other side of that is the tool you use doesn't actually matter, because you can change it at any point in time. You're just using it to fulfill a process that you want to have in your life. This so that you can, like, I use Trello right now. I'm trying to really use it to like better. I'm good with, like you, like good when I can write down and I can plan it. And I know if I plan things out, I feel really good at the end of the week. If I don't, and I let myself just like let things happen ephemerally, I feel terrible. Like I feel like I haven't accomplished anything. I feel stressed out, all those things. But I've also changed from like Trello to Asana to, Remember the Milk to like half a dozen tools in the last year. Like just keep going through them. And I'm like, at some point I finally had to embrace the fact that you use the tool as long as it actually makes sense for the thing that you're trying to do. And at some point you realize it's not really helping anymore. Okay, change it. It itself doesn't actually matter. It's just that you have something that is working for you at that time, whatever it is.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
That's so
I used
cool.
your Panda planner for a while because I got that
Oh,
from one of your videos. And then now I'm using the high performance planner.
oh,
So
there you go.
so when you need a new tool,
High
I
performance
got one
planner.
for
Okay,
you.
I'll remember that. Well, I've left the Panda planner for probably about 9 months. I've started using it again. I
Oh,
actually have it right here in front of me. Because I've been really trying to get back to, I realized there was something tactile about like writing in a book that I
writing.
really, yeah, with a pen that I really enjoyed. I have my iPad here someplace. I was using an app called Notability to do handwriting notes on it. And I loved that I was doing it, but I finally realized I loved that I could do it with technology rather than it actually providing any value. So then I went back to using the Panda Planner like digital file on this. And then again, there was the same thing. It just, there was too many, what's the term? There was too much friction. I would have to go to the
Yeah.
iPad, unlock the iPad, launch the app, find the note. I'm like, if I'm doing all that, I can literally keep my book right in front of me all day. And this is what I want. I don't want to look at my Outlook calendar. I want to have this in front of me so I don't have to keep going to Outlook because I hate looking at email.
It's interesting. So the written planner did not work for me when I was traveling, and I had to switch to an iPad because I was losing all the little pieces of paper. Like because I write tiny little notes to myself
Mhm.
everywhere, and I would lose them when I was traveling. So I had to do digital when I travel, and I have switched back to paper now that I have one workspace
Yeah.
because the notes they'll just be in a pile. I don't lose them on an airplane. So so to your point, the tool is right for the situation and the time.
I agree. And I can imagine that being a good seatmate on a plane with Post-it notes spread out in front of you is probably not the best way to go about it.
Yeah, pardon my Kanban in the back of your seat.
I'm just gonna set my design thinking board here in front of me. Can you just give me a minute? Thanks. I got my box of Sharpies and my notepad. I'll be ready to go here.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, Cindy, thank you so much. I know we're running a little bit long on time, but I really, really appreciate having you on. It's nice to get yet another perspective from somebody in just a very different sort of position at Cisco than what I do and what others do too. And I think it's really good for everyone to kind of hear from somebody like you, to allow themselves to give themselves permission to embrace whatever their reality is right now, whatever works for them, because it's different for all of us. That's the point.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for joining again. We'll have another episode next week. I would really appreciate a thumbs up on the video if you liked watching it. And always remember, you can hit subscribe if you want to keep up with notifications. I try to release these videos every Monday. I've got several more coming up in the next few weeks. So please click subscribe. It really helps the channel. If you have any comments or any feedback, please put them in the comments below. Or if there's anybody you'd like to suggest to be on the show, I would love to hear that. I'm always looking for new folks. Anyway, have a great afternoon, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.